Hey, if you're a weightlifter, you probably have tight hips. You know that, right? Here are 3 essential stretches to reduce soreness in your hips and increase hip flexibility. Even if you haven't done yoga or are super inflexible, just follow along and give this a shot. I've got Austin Curran here, who is a bodybuilder, and he's going to show you that even bodybuilders aren't inflexible enough to do this. So we're going to go through 3 stretches here focused on recovery and flexibility for the hips and modifying them in a way that's appropriate for someone with your flexibility levels and overall muscle mass. Yes. All right, cool. So first pose we're going to do is a pyramid. And we're going to do pyramid here in a way that's a little bit more relaxed. Sometimes I can do pyramid where it's a bit more active. So this is going to feel a bit more relaxed. So you're going to set up kind of like you would a lunge with the stance. Right leg is back, turned out 45 degrees. And then that front leg is forward. Good. And we're going to start with the hands on the blocks. The way that I like to get into this, bring your legs just a little bit further apart and start with that front knee bent just a little bit. So we're going to work on bending the front knee and then pulling your chest forward and up, almost like you're trying to get your chest to the wall in front of you. Good. And then you're going to straighten that left leg just until you feel a stretch through the through the hamstring. Right. So, yeah. So this is a really nice supported stretch. We're using the blocks here, which means we don't have to worry about the core. We don't have to worry about your back positioning as much. We can really focus on doing this in a way that just allows that hamstring to stretch. And you might also see this, but you can see Austin's thigh even shaking in this. So even if it is a stretch, sometimes you are going to have that muscle shaking. And, it can be uncomfortable in the moment, but when we're done with this, he's going to be feeling a lot better. So with this kind of stretch, you want to do at least 60 seconds. This isn't like you remember playing sports when you were 12 years old. We're not just counting to 10 and switching sides. We want to hold this for a longer period of time so that your body actually gets the time that it needs to really get that muscle to relax and lengthen. That's going to help with the flexibility process, but it's also going to help jumpstart the recovery process. And as we're here, we're doing really slow, controlled breaths in and out of the nose. So as much as you can remember, right, slow, controlled breathing. All right. Cool. And even from start to finish, you'll probably notice that, you can come out. So even from start to finish, you're going to notice that hamstring, the hips do open up within 60 seconds. So you do notice that improvement from start to finish, which is pretty cool. Cool. All right, so other side, we got right leg forward, left leg back. Yeah, point that out 45 degrees. Good. And I like starting with the knee bent and the chest pulling forward and up just because it's a good starting point. We can get some tension in the hamstring to start. And then on an exhale, you're going to straighten that front leg just until you feel that stretch to the hamstring. Yeah. And so like Austin said, right, you're going to have one side that's tighter than the other. It doesn't mean that there's a problem. It's just normal. It's good to be aware of it, but it is normal. So yeah, as we're here, and we can make this a little more active if you want. So right now, Austin's got, he's got his hands on the blocks. He's allowing his chest to kind of relax. If he wanted to make this more active, he could push down more through the right foot. He could also flex. He could have a more active contraction of the quadriceps. So he could really squeeze his quadriceps. That's going to open up the hamstrings a little bit more. It's just going to feel a bit more intense. But there are variations here, right? There's different levels of intensity. So you can make it really kind of passive and easy. Or if you wanted to, if you just felt like you want to push it a little bit, maybe the goal is increasing flexibility, then you add in that active contraction of the opposing muscle group. Yeah. And again, we want to make sure that we're doing about 60 seconds here. And you can kind of see him. He's kind of like bending and straightening the leg just as comfort allows. So don't feel like you have to stay in it. If it's really feeling uncomfortable, bend the knee, move it a little bit, and then come back into it. And usually that does help if you're feeling a little uncomfortable as you're doing it. Cool. All right, great. Got one muscle. Let's do some more. So next stretch we're going to do is a strap stretch on your back, and we're going to target your outer thigh with this. I really love this stretch because most of us don't do this stretch that often, and if you spend a lot of time sitting, which is pretty much everybody in the modern world, this is going to open up all of those muscles that get tight when we sit. So you're going to lie down on your back.
We're going to do, let's go whatever leg first. Let's go right leg first. Right leg first, bringing the leg in. Strap around the sole of that foot.
You gotta see my limitations here. Put the socks on.
Yeah. Actually, do the full strap. So
okay.
Don't do like that. There we go. That'll make it a lot easier. All right, cool. So now we're gonna bring the leg up, and then just depending on flexibility level. So like if you're less flexible, straighten your leg out to like right about here. So I've got some people that I work with who are less flexible, and it's difficult for them to get into this position here. If you're feeling the stretch in the back of your thigh as you're here, then you're doing it correctly for your depth. Now, if you're a little more flexible, maybe that leg comes further, right? But even there, right? So
There's like a 7 out of 10 here, 8 out of 10, 4 out of 10.
Yeah. I mean, I would aim for like, so I always like starting with like a 4 out of 10, right? So he was asking about intensity of the stretch. So I always like starting at about a 4 out of 10. Let's go there. Let's feel good in the stretch. Let's establish a slow, controlled breathing pattern. And then maybe 2 or 3 breaths later, we test, oh, can I make this a little bit more intense? But if you keep that kind of relaxed focus to it and slowly ramp up, your body's going to respond a lot more kindly to that. You know, if you're a weightlifter, you've probably had some rage in your workouts. There's probably some sort of rage driving you. I know about that. But when you're doing yoga, we don't want to have that rage that you've taken to the weights. It's going to be counterproductive.
It's the opposite of stubbing your toe.
Yeah, it's like it's a different kind of strength, I like to say. It's the strength to be able to be comfortable with discomfort rather than just pushing harder and getting through it. So anyways, so from here, we're going to go into the stretch, which we haven't actually done yet. So we're going to try to keep this right hip on the ground, and we're going to bring this leg out to the side just a little bit. And notice we went like 4 or 5, maybe 6 inches, right? So do that shift again. Just show how subtle that is, right? Just a little bit to the side. And now your whole outer quadricep is probably dying a little bit, right? That outer hip is super intense stretch here. So we've already been holding this for a while. I'm not going to make you hold this for that much longer. But if you're doing this on your own, I'd recommend that you aim for at least 60 seconds. Fortunately, this is something that you can kind of do while you're watching TV. It doesn't take a ton of focus. So you can do this while you're doing other things. So, keep a strap by your couch, keep a strap by your bed for other reasons, obviously, but keep a strap nearby so that if you're doing stuff, if you're just doing something mundane, instead of sitting on the couch, instead of, just doing nothing, grab a strap, get the stretch in, and just take care of yourself a little bit. So now that he's on the other side, good thing that we can highlight here is he's not keeping this hip off the ground. That hip is staying on the floor. So you could do this in a way, so take it all the way over to the side, right? So you could do this in a way where it adds a twist, which this does feel great. Like this is a great stretch, but that's going to focus more on the spine. So focusing more on the hip here, we're actually going to keep that left hip kind of pulling down toward the ground and just bringing the leg to the inside a little bit. And then if you want to, if you're really, really into pain, you can also flex your toes down here. So reach your toes down. Yep. And then try to get your heel above your toes. Oh, yeah. Then we get some really nice calf stretching in there, and all of us could use a bit more calf stretching in our life. So, yeah, and you can see his leg really shaking here. So I find that whenever I have that leg shaking and I'm doing the stretch, like if I can hold it for just a few more breaths, the next day my body loves me. My knees like me a lot more. My back feels a lot better. So it can be a bit uncomfortable while you're doing it, but just remember to keep breathing. Hold it for as long as you reasonably can. And then, so 60 seconds minimum. And you can honestly do this stretch for like 3 or 4 minutes, just depending on how your body feels.
If you like this video and you want to see more on yoga and weightlifting, check out the other videos in this series. We've got the whole series available in the Manful Yoga app and members area. I've got a special free trial and a special YouTube-only price at the link below in the description.
Yeah. All right. One more stretch. So this next stretch we're going to do now. Normally, so the full variation of this stretch is called a pyramid. So I'm just going to show what a pyramid looks like. So a pyramid, not pyramid, pigeon. So the full variation of the stretch looks like this. Now, most people who are new to yoga aren't going to be able to get into this. And Austin, I know you've done some yoga, but you're your body type, your flexibility. It's just going to be tough to do that. So one way that what I like about yoga, as long as you know the proper modifications, you can choose the appropriate one that works for your fitness level. So instead of doing that, I'm going to have you find a wall. You're going to sit down with your hips about knee distant away from the wall. So you're lying on your back with your knees bent over your hips. Your shins are going to be parallel to the floor. Shins are going to be parallel to the floor, feet against the wall. Yeah.
Like this.
Cool. Perfect. Exactly. Yep. And then you can go ahead and lie down. And what we're going to do here to mimic that pigeon, just going to cross. Let's go right leg over your left ankle. Right ankle over your left thigh. I forgot how to talk. Perfect. Like that. And so this is getting the exact same muscle group, but we're in such a nice supported position here. So the foot is against the wall. We don't have to worry about you can do this where you reach through and grab the thigh. So like Austin, if you didn't have a wall, your right hand would go through your legs, your left hand would go around the thigh, and you have to hold like that, and you'd be up in this kind of awkward position. But with the wall there, you're able to rest the foot. Your arms can do whatever feels good. One thing that you might want to do here, if you're new to stretching like this, it might feel nice to, like you're doing it now, kind of have a hand on the knee just to support that a little bit. You might have some pain in maybe the outside of the knee, especially if you had previous knee injuries. So just holding on to the knee there can feel a bit supported. And then if you want to make that ankle active, what you can do is flex the toes back toward the shin, right? So dorsiflex. And then that active ankle will help support the knee a little bit more. So as we're here, you're going to feel a big stretch through your outer thigh and your glutes. This is going to be really nice for relieving tension in your lower back. It's also going to help with your knees. This is really good for increasing range of motion in squats. And yeah, just because this is a nice relaxed position, you can easily stay here for 60 seconds. And then just depending on how the knee feels, you could maybe take it up to 2 minutes or 2.5, maybe even 3 minutes. So this is a really good one to do probably within 24 hours of, and any of these exercises that we've done so far. These are great poses or great stretches to do within 24 hours of whichever workout you just finished. You're going to notice that you have less soreness if you do this. It's also going to help you with, you'll notice that you feel more fluid in the exercises as you go through them in your next workout. You're just going to make everything feel a little bit better. Obviously that time commitment, right? Does take time, but if it's worth it and if you want to be able to exercise pain-free, then this is something to make time for. So again, same thing here. He's got the knee and the ankle level with one another, the shins parallel to the ground, just crossing the ankle over the other thigh. He's trying to keep his hips squared forward the best he can. Now, obviously, some hip mobility limitations, you might not be able to keep those hips perfectly squared. And then again, it does help. He's got the hand on the knee for a little bit of support. If he can make the ankle active, then that can also help. So all those things can help make this stretch more comfortable. And if you notice that it's uncomfortable, then don't go as deep. Don't push the knee as much. So something to think about here is we're working on external rotation of the hip. The goal isn't to get my knee as far to the wall as possible. So we're just working on externally rotating the hip. That knee might follow when you externally rotate, but the knee going forward is not the goal itself. So be mindful of your knee here. And again, especially if you've had previous knee injuries or just knee tenderness in some of your workouts. So, cool. All right, hips should be feeling a lot more open.
They do.
So we just finished going through a few workouts, yoga workouts specifically made for weightlifters. As we're going through them, we're talking about how they're helpful for weightlifters. At the end of them, each one I asked you, like, hey, how do you feel now? Like, how would this help with weightlifting? You're like, oh, it actually helped a lot. And so my question is, for guys who are recreational weightlifting, so for guys who are weightlifting with an overall health goal, why aren't more guys doing this type of stretching? And why aren't more guys doing recovery work, mobility work?
I think one has to do with the time commitment to it.
Yeah.
You're already spending all this time in the gym. And also there's even though I'm a body aware person, I have good balance, I have good coordination, good proprioception generally. Even for me, I'm way more confident that you're here now, whether that be in person or virtual, and actually taking me through more so than, okay, what are these positions? What should I be feeling? How do I progress this a little bit? Do I go out with my hip, in with my hip? there's just so many questions, right? And so you, as my kind of yoga personal trainer here, just as I would be a weightlifting personal trainer, it's just it's a person to guide you through gaining more confidence in those movement patterns, right? And so I think a lot of recreational weightlifters would gain a ton from incorporating yoga into their sessions, whether that's a part of their session or just after their sessions or just a part of their routine. And personally, if we're going for like health benefit, muscle gain, strength gain, longevity, health span, just overall feeling of day-to-day life, activities of daily living, this is a lot to say as a weightlifter and someone who's dedicated their life to it, but I would almost rather you do one less day in the gym, recategorize your lifting a little bit, reassign some days, maybe go more full body sessions, and at least go through periods of time where you're really honing in and focusing more and more on yoga and stretching and flexibility and that mobility in those end ranges. Because again, we can translate that back and forth. Just very similar to what I would say to, maybe a yogi, that they have this unbelievable flexibility, but very little strength within that active range that they have. They can passively go anywhere they want. They can put their feet above them, kind of that position where they can you can just rotate your spine all the way up. But what's that doing for you ultimately, right? Because there's a point where I think there's a healthy amount of strength we can gain while still adding other facets to our health routine. Yeah. So again, I'd much rather you maybe spend one less day dedicated to lifting and maybe replace some of that with more aerobic work and more yoga work. That's better. It's going to better complement not only you physically, but you mentally and emotionally, cardiovascularly, and then just your overall longevity and health span as a whole.
Yeah. And I don't know if people recognize this or not, but if you're doing 2 or 3 sessions of weight training, especially if you're doing 3 weight training sessions a week, like there are marginal benefits to adding like a 4th and a 5th session. Like at some point you're like, do you really need 4 or 5 sessions a week?
Yeah, so there's actually just a study that came out on training volume for muscle growth and frequency of training for muscle growth and frequency of training for strength and volume of work for strength. And it was a meta-regression that sort of looked at every study that we have that fit a criteria of what would give us the best answer here. And what they found was it's sort of this hockey stick looking curve, right? So it starts high where there's a high productivity and a low amount, and that tends to increase or starts to become more and more effective towards that growth. But there's a point at which there are diminishing returns. And so more is, one of the researchers, I'm going to kind of loosely quote, but more is better until that point of diminishing returns, right? So it's like more can be better insofar as it's not detracting, right? It's not taking away. And so we can get a lot out of very little. There's ideally a middle ground there to be had within gaining muscle. But the amount of volume you truly need to like pack on the muscle you may want or go for the strength you may want, and that I'm saying like recreationally, not even reaching your genetic potential, but just like adding some muscle to look and feel a bit better, and strength to be able to function day-to-day life. There's a sweet spot, right? And we can likely get that volume in 2 to 3 sessions very, very easily, to where that frees up a lot more space for things like yoga, things like cardiovascular training, things that are going to better complement mobility and flexibility, balance, coordination, proprioception, body awareness, which we tend to struggle with as we age and lose, as well as the cardiovascular component that we can get a little bit within weightlifting and yoga, but not to the same degree. So I think that's a bigger part of the holistic approach to weightlifting that I've taken on as I've gotten older and as this conversation has matured for me, outside of just getting as big and as strong as possible. I just want to feel good and be around for kids in the future, be around for my loved ones in the future, and be able to move through life in an agile way and continue to contribute to those loved ones.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice work on that, guys. Remember, you can do this more than once. So save this video somehow and use those stretches. They're perfect for recovery days or right after a workout. They're going to help keep your hips loose, strong, and injury resistant. Big thanks to Austin Curran for being part of this video. Be sure to check him out on Instagram and YouTube. He's got the links for him in the description below here. And if you like this video, be sure to like it, subscribe to Manful Yoga. We put out a new video every week. We're going to keep helping you get stronger with our fitness-centric yoga for men approach. If you want to check out the next video in this series, go ahead and click right above my shoulder. This is a really good one for your shoulders.